My name is Amy Tong. I currently lead a client experience team in the financial services industry. When I was younger, my mom actually told me, "Nola, I don't think you can survive in the corporate world." But she knows me since I was young, right? My personality, my demeanor. She was like, "Nola, you'll be eaten up. So I don't think you'll ever survive." So I think in Buddhism actually helped to ground me and give me more faith and confidence that we can be successful and at the same time we can be of benefit to other people. I think stepping up as a leader is more about caring for the people. I think I would want to deepen a lot of the work that I'm doing within the mentorship space or even coaching. And I always said, if not for Buddhism, I think corporate world would have shaped me very differently. When I was a school kid, I think it would be maybe upper primary. I remember that in a school bus, it was a very packed school bus. There is this boy who was a bit more big size, and I find it very strange because why nobody ever sits next to him? It's a packed school bus, okay? Then suddenly we'll have an empty seat there, every time empty. And then I'm like, that's so strange, right? Why people are not sitting next to the person? You know what? That's not very nice. I'm gonna sit, and make sure that the person doesn't feel like discriminated. Then over time, obviously, we have conversations, and I just feel then at least everyone in the bus is included. So my husband has a very big heart and always share a lot of things. He's actually in the scientific research. And I one day asked him like, hey, you've been sharing so much and you literally shared everything. Like, how do you feel about it? Like, what if people copy your ideas or take credit of your ideas? He told me something simple that really lightened me up and said, oh, that's good. So if they do copy it, then it means my work must be very good. So plagiarism is a form of flattery, they always say. But he also said, but I'm always inventing and I'm always innovating. I will have better and greater ideas. So we need to have, that confidence that we will innovate and have better. But by us sharing, it could also help, make things more scalable. And sometimes it could be the more contradicting the way we think of a concept, like for example, the more we got, the higher I can climb. We service someone that just said, you know what, I'm happy to share because I'm always innovating and will have greater ideas. It just give you a perspective of like, wow, if I can think that way, I think it would be make the world so much better place. To me, the foundation of a lot of the client relationship management is about trust, and it's about understanding what the client needs. So the ability to have empathy, to put yourself in the client's shoes, to help them solve problems, to help them, add value is key. I think at the start, when I first did the role, I was not sure how to go about it, but I was very, very fortunate to have very seasoned seniors that have guided me and helped me build those relationships one after another, and making the efforts to deepen and getting to know your clients inside out is something that I think is helpful when you have conversation with them to understand what are their pain points, understand what is their strategy, and how can we partner with them. So if there's a wannabe who is keen to explore, relationship management as a, career path, I will advise them to really, read up about, the products and the services that we are offering to the clients, so that you know the kind of solutioning that is out there. And secondly is be a good listener. Listen to what your client need and try to, derive a solution that could, help meet their needs. I don't think, anyone would come to you with a problem unless they trust that you have a solution. So having to build that relationship, like consistent and constant frequent visits to understand, okay, maybe what I'll usually do is at the start of the year, understand, okay, what's your strategy for the next few years, what are your priorities for this year, and from there be very nimble to then understand how can we add value. Before we meet the client, we will also do a lot of research and a lot of the information of what's their latest happenings, what are their key priorities can also be found within the internet, in the public space. And I guess when we go in to meet the client is really have a deeper conversation to then understand and bring all the key components together and said how can we actually help them. And those conversations, if you have done your homework, you understand them well, then that's where they will feel much comfortable to then share, oh, actually these are the areas of challenges or pain points or priorities, like what are you thinking about it, and really doing a knowledge sharing. Document it. We call that a call report, and we will also have different interactions. How many times have they emailed us? How quickly have we resolved their inquiries? And what is the latest conversation that we had with them, so that when you go and meet them the next time, it is a more progressive conversation versus repeating something standard, and they will feel much more customized and relevant to them. So I think for me, it can be built, it definitely cannot be built overnight, but a lot of this can be done by, consistent performance and delivery. So simple things like, when a client comes to you, make sure you are being responsive. Don't make them feel like, they send something into a black hole. So responsiveness is one. And adding value is something I kept mentioning, because instead of just responding to them, acknowledging it, we need to be very precise in terms of what's the next steps, how can we help, as well as what's the timeline. So at least the client will feel safe that, okay, Amy is a reliable person, it represents an organization that I can rely on to get it done, and when it's ready, we will always know about it. Usually what we will do is I will also draft out the key takeaways from that conversation, because we also want to come across as, number one, we've heard their voices, and we also want to be responsible and accountable at the back of what has been discussed, and follow through to ensure that we actually resolve or come back on what we have committed to. It is a constant struggle for many people, and I found this out specifically, especially during COVID time, whereby a lot of young working adults who are within the Buddhist community felt a constant tension. Hey, I want to be a good Buddhist, and then all the qualities that you just mentioned, but then I don't want to go and chase after this, but then yet I want to have a good livelihood. So it's always the confusion of what's the right balance and what's the right tension. During COVID, we've started a Buddhist mentorship program, really to bring all these young working adults together and pair them up with Buddhist leaders who can then guide them. And a number of the Buddhist mentors that we have are, CEOs, founders of company, consultants in different industries. So I think we start to see that more and more, but we also use that as a platform to plant a seed that you can be successful while practicing Buddhist values. And you don't have to, be unscrupulous in the means of pursuing good and successful livelihood. One day when you look at yourself in the mirror, you don't hate the person that have, transformed, but actually feel grateful, contented, and proud that you have achieved it, in a way that you can find peace within your heart. So you mentioned about, selflessness earlier. So in Buddhism, it's about, having the right balance of wisdom and compassion. So I guess the compassion part helped me to, be more empathetic to my clients, to understand what's their pain points and how can I help them. And on the wisdom part is really to look at, okay, what is the right way of doing it in a way that, obviously fit the values, in a way that doesn't harm anybody. And I think having those spiritual grounding, interestingly, also spilled into both my personal and professional life. It's important because otherwise it's just very boxed up and you don't get the softer part of human interaction. I guess these small talks, which are more about, getting more into a common repertoire, is important, but not the kind of small talk whereby you're talking about another person, because that to me, while some believe that it actually builds relationship, I actually think it's the opposite. If you have a physical team next to you, really make the effort to, just do the walk to the desk versus email or phone call, because I think that adds a more personal touch. Because if you don't do that in a physical environment, you are creating those shields unknowingly. And I've seen leaders that do that whereby they are physically there with their team, but they will sit in one corner and not interact. And it feels very top-down. But when it comes to a global team, I think the connectivity may need to be pumped up so that it makes up for the loss of the whole face-to-face element. And I think for the global team, consistency is important, so that regular frequency of us penning it into the diary, so that we have an operating rhythm of how frequent do we connect. I always see a human being as a holistic life. Like career is only part of it, and of course a lot of us spend a good 8, 10, 12 hours at workforce. But sometimes we forget that every individual has a whole life. So every time I ask how are you, I see them as a whole human being. And some of the tips that I've used would be sometimes ask really fun questions like, how do you know your husband? And then what do you do over the weekend? And then you start to tease out a lot of things that show them in a different light versus just the person that is servicing a client. Because of the curiosity and because you really genuinely want to know them as a human being, you would come up with very creative angles. And sometimes I was really surprised with how the conversation then gives me a whole different view about them as a holistic person. I remember there was this one time whereby, because I was always giving out, I was not very wise in how I am managing those information myself. Someone within the community who shared a lot of challenges with me, and because I was so genuinely trying to help, right, I didn't realize that I was absorbing all the problems because I was really putting myself completely in the shoe. And I remember I was telling my husband like, oh my gosh, I felt like I fully consumed the problem. And this is also where I think the practice around spirituality and Buddhism helped me, whereby we need to be compassionate. Compassionate means that, as someone suffer, you feel for them and you feel like you want to do something for them. But it took me a while in my practice to balance out compassion with wisdom. In the past, I would consume the problem as though I become the other person. So instead of one person having a problem, become like two person. So not very wise lah. You're creating more suffering. But now it's really about being there to listen and understand that, okay, this person is suffering and this is the problem, and really just being present with the person versus trying to, always problem solve. In the past, maybe because in the corporate sector, I always like, people come to tell me problem, I must straight away give solution, and problem solve, right? That was like my natural instinct. But unknowingly, I consumed the problem myself. So now I think with some practice to balance wisdom and compassion, for me to really be present and, see the problem as it is, and just be present to listen. Sometimes most people actually just want a listening ear versus us trying to, give unsolicited advice. I think when you do global people management, it's then opening up your minds to different cultures. And different cultures can, behave differently. So for example, when you're having a conversation in an American context, everyone is very direct. But when you go to, let's say, a Japanese culture, you need to spend more time to really build the relationship and trust for them to feel that it's safe to share with you, because Japanese culture, for example, is also very respectful of hierarchy. So it's about how do you tweak your leadership style to be respectful and understanding of the culture. And again, I think being a people leader, you need to be very curious to learn about the people and the culture. The first time when I went to Japan, I want to make sure that I also try my best to act like a local. So really be very respectful. I remember I was like bowing down like 90 degrees. And then I love running a diverse team because it helps me to learn some local languages as well. And I think although I may not be able to speak the full sentences, you making the effort as a leader to use some of those words actually make them smile. So I think breaking the ice at the start in that way is helpful. But even in big meetings, because I'm mindful that maybe certain cultures are more reserved, I would then intentionally, before the meeting ends, to say like, Team Japan, do you have anything to add or probe them? Would you like to share about this recent achievement with the global team? So that could actually make everyone feel more inclusive and everyone has a voice. But I guess my longer term plan would be, how can I use some of these skill sets and wisdom that I've accumulated through the journey in my professional life to help others to thrive in their own story and in their own timeline. I think I would want to deepen a lot of the work that I'm doing within the mentorship space or even coaching. And that's something that I feel very, very, very rewarding. Even I do it within the work context or outside of work context. I realize some of the struggles and challenges that we face are so similar. And sometimes I wish that, if anyone who is going through a very difficult path have someone to really just support them and guide them through, it would help short circuit a lot of, the trying to run around to solve the problem.